In today's video, I want to talk about the capability of the Volkswagen e-Golf in snow and ice conditions. If you aren't familiar with the e-Golf, it's an all-electric version of Volkswagen's popular Golf model with an electric range of 125 miles. Within the United States, it's only sold in 10 states and the District of Columbia. On the exterior of the e-Golf, there's only a few things that distinguish it from its gasoline and diesel counterparts. Most noticeable is probably this unique set of wheels, which are aerodynamic, lightweight, and come with a low rolling resistance tire. On the front grille, you'll see it's kind of closed in here. Not as much of a need to get air into that engine compartment with a electric vehicle. And then on this front bumper, this little chrome strip along the bottom is unique to the e-Golf, as well as this daytime running light. Beyond those features, the e-Golf is essentially the same as the other versions of the Golf. One of the things I really like about the e-Golf is that it doesn't stand out as an electric vehicle. You'll see that there's also no tailpipes, but a little gap there for where one could be. And just as the exterior is very similar to other Golf models, the interior is likewise essentially the same. Rather than having a tachometer, it does have a little energy display there on the left. And then the steering wheel has the blue stitching, as well as the center gear shifter. Overall, a very attractive interior and exterior on the e-Golf. Now there's 5 different properties that I want to talk about that affect a vehicle's capability and performance in snow and ice. And the first of those is handling. And I'm a strong believer that if a vehicle handles well on dry pavement, that can have a significant carryover to its capability in snow and ice conditions. Now it doesn't mean that all vehicles that handle well on dry pavement are going to handle well in snow and ice, but there is quite a bit of correlation there. Likewise, when a vehicle handles very poorly on dry pavement, in general it's not going to handle that well in snow and ice either. And so one of the comparisons I like to draw to is a pickup that's got 4-wheel drive or a sports sedan that's got all-wheel drive in snow and ice. And in general, I think that with an all-wheel drive sports sedan, you're actually gonna have much better performance than a 4-wheel drive pickup on snow and ice conditions because they handle so much better on dry pavement. They've got better weight distribution, better handling overall, and that really carries over. Now when you get into really deep powder, that truck's gonna have an advantage because of the additional clearance and the 4-wheel drive system compared with the all-wheel drive. But in general, if the road is plowed and you're talking about icy pavement or a little bit of snow, I think the sports sedan is gonna overperform when compared with the pickup. Now, looking at the e-Golf, one of the things that's really great about this car, not only makes it a lot of fun to drive, but makes it a really great car to drive, is that it has excellent handling. It's kind of, proportionally speaking, very similar to a go-kart. You think about a go-kart, it's got the 4 wheels positioned very close to the corners of the vehicle. Take a look at this rear wheel, how close that is to the back of the vehicle, compared to, say, a sedan or a station wagon. And the Golf is available in those different configurations with the Jetta and the All-Track, where there's going to be quite a bit of weight behind that rear wheel. With the e-Golf, those rear wheels are at the corner. The front, you've got a little bit of body ahead of the front wheel, but still, those 4 wheels are pretty close to the corners of the vehicle. And so with that, combined with the fact that this is an electric vehicle and it's got a battery pack sitting under the floor of the vehicle, it's got a really low center of gravity. It kind of is like the ultimate go-kart in some sense because you do have those 4 wheels positioned at the corners, you've got that heavy weight in the bottom, and with that it gets really good handling. And so in that sense, the Golf handles very well in snow and ice conditions because it's got really good weight distribution and just proportionally is designed to handle very good on dry pavement, and that carries over quite a bit to snow and ice. So handling is really important for keeping a vehicle on the road once it's already moving. But to get a vehicle moving, traction is key. And for that reason, all-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive systems are typically the preference for snow vehicles. The next preference is generally a front-wheel drive vehicle because most vehicles are heavier in the front because of the engine. They get better traction. And then for the same reason, traction, rear-wheel drive vehicles are kind of the last choice because they tend to be lighter in the rear and they have more trouble gaining traction. Now, it'd be really nice to see more electric vehicles in the future come with all-wheel drive because they're much less complex to build than a four-wheel drive gasoline vehicle, but unfortunately the e-Golf comes with just front-wheel drive. So it is better than a rear-wheel drive system, but not as good as a four-wheel drive system. On top of that, because it's an electric vehicle, it doesn't have an engine in the front, and so you don't get as much of an advantage from that front-wheel drive because there's a lot of empty space under the hood. You've got a motor here and some other components, but it's much lighter in the front here than a gasoline engine would be. Most of the weight of the vehicle is actually in the battery pack, which is centered under the vehicle. And so the weight distribution is better, which helps with that handling component, but it also means you don't get as good a traction because a lot of the weight is in the rear of the vehicle, but your power delivery is up here at the front. And so that's one downside of the e-Golf, is because that weight distribution is a little bit more even, there's less weight in the front, and so for that reason, it's a little harder to get traction. Now, along the same discussion of traction, one thing that's unique about the e-Golf, because it's electric, is that the torque delivery is instantaneous. And that's a really good thing overall. It makes the vehicle a lot of fun to drive, acceleration is very quick, it also makes the vehicle very easy to spin out. And so that's one thing that you do have to get used to when driving an electric vehicle, is applying the throttle very evenly, smoothly, and gently to avoid spinning out. It's not a bad thing, it's nothing that's wrong with the vehicle, but it is something you have to get used to when driving an electric vehicle, and it can affect the performance in snow and ice. Ground clearance is another important consideration to keep in mind when talking about a vehicle's capability in snow and ice conditions. It's not going to matter as much when you're talking about a plowed road or residual snow and ice, but when you're in a heavy storm or driving through a deep parking lot that hasn't been cleared, it does become a pretty important factor, especially when you're talking about a two-wheel drive vehicle. With a four-wheel drive vehicle, you're going to be able to plow through deep powder a little more easily, but as we mentioned, since this is a front-wheel drive and that weight distribution is centered a little bit more toward the back, it's going to be a little harder to get traction and make it a lot harder to get through that deep powder. Now, the ground clearance on the e-Golf isn't really that bad. Despite the fact that it's a small vehicle, it's really pretty comparable to other sedans on the market, but it's still a drawback when you're considering it in comparison with a truck or an SUV. And so that would be one downside of the e-Golf, is that while the ground clearance isn't terrible, it's not going to be that impressive either, and it is going to affect the ability to drive in snow and ice at some level. Now, your vehicle could have great handling, plenty of ground clearance, and perhaps an all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive system helping with that power transfer to the road, but ultimately, unless you have good tires, it's not going to handle that well in snow and ice, and that's a real drawback on the e-Golf. Now, I already mentioned that the e-Golf comes with a unique set of wheels that are both aerodynamic and lightweight. They're paired with a tire that has a low rolling resistance, and this whole setup is very good for efficient driving and increasing that electric range. Not so good for driving in snow and ice. These tires have less than 1,000 miles, and you'll see they have plenty of tread, but they aren't siped and they just don't perform very well in snow and ice. You can upgrade to a set of winter tires, but you're going to look at spending several $100s, and it's going to have an impact on the electric range. If you want to drive the vehicle in stock form without getting winter tires, you're going to be disappointed with the performance of these tires. So on a scale from poor to fair to good to excellent, I'd say that overall the e-Golf gets a score of fair when it comes to driving in snow and ice conditions. It has good handling, the clearance is decent within this class, but it's a little lacking, and then the traction is pretty poor, especially with those stock tires. If you're looking at getting an e-Golf and you're deciding whether this is a vehicle that's going to work for you, I'd say that for driving around town and on plowed highways, you're going to be okay most of the time with an e-Golf if you have a good set of winter tires. If you're going to be driving through deeper storms and doing some pretty frequent trips over snowy passes, the e-Golf may not be for you. If you have any comments or questions, leave those in the section below. For more car reviews and videos of my 2018 e-Golf, subscribe to my channel. In the meantime, thanks for watching.